Hello everyone, welcome to another amazing day on fmtraining.tv. I am here with the amazing LiveCode team, as well as myself and Mr. Miles, to basically discuss the FileMaker platform, but in this particular case, to discuss the FileMaker platform and how to make it work on Android, which is, as I have said many times this week, it will continue to say, like, the biggest desire of people ever since, frankly, FileMaker Go was launched. I have distinct memories seeing that DevCon people asking, so when's it going to be on Android? Like, over 10 years ago now. So, real quick, we stream on 3 platforms. We stream on Discord, we stream on YouTube, and we also stream on Twitch. Please ask us questions. This is an interactive live stream. We do like talking to you guys. The entire point of us doing these is to foster a community and hear back from you and hear your guys' opinions, comments, questions, concerns. So please do that. We greatly appreciate it. Want a real quick look at this upcoming week. Live training schedule. Here we go. So the live training schedule. So today is day 4. We're basically going to be discussing syncing and compiling in more in-depth. And then day 5 tomorrow is going to be the Google Marketplace, how to sign up, what software, all that jazz. You gotta make the app, and then you gotta submit it places, and that's where things can get really complicated. Day 6, we also basically discussing app maintenance, how to roll out updates. People are going to say, this is a bug, this doesn't work, you got to fix it somehow, so we'll be talking about that on day 6. Day 7 is going to be iOS, basically what is the advantages of LiveCode versus SDK and FMGo, which will be a very interesting conversation. Day 8 will be focusing on the Mac runtime. Day 9 will be customer testimonials and the future plans of LiveCode, which will be very exciting. And day 10 is kind of being like an open Q&A, so that'll be very fun. I am very excited for it. I am here. So wait, hold on, real quick before I get into that. If you want to support the channel, we do have the fmtraining.tv training bundle. It's about 100 plus hours of video content under a subscription. It helps us greatly. We do this 5 days a week for pretty much free. But people do need to get paid, so paying for this helps us a lot. And also, you get a ton of awesome training content out of it, 100 plus hours on Server and Go and FileMaker Pro. And Richard is talking, and if anyone knows Richard, he is very active and very entertaining, if nothing else. So you won't be bored, I promise you that. So feel free to do that if you are so inclined.
Cool, thanks, Marks. So just to kind of recap where we've been this week, if you just joined us coming in, we're talking about LiveCode for FM. And so Monday we just started with talking about what is LiveCode for FM. We had some licensing questions. And just kind of get that basic baseline of what it is. Then the next day we actually built the file in FileMaker, a really simple file you can upload. We'll see it, but photos, audios, barcode. We talked a little bit about the idea of sync. And then yesterday we actually looked at compiling what you'd actually need to set up your machine. Do you need Xcode? Do you need Android Studio? Those kind of things. And then today we have Ali here. We're actually going to talk a lot about sync. And yeah, just basically getting ready to deploy our app to Android. So feel free to ask questions, everyone. But yeah, I'm going to hand it over to Ali. Tell us a little bit what you do, and then it's all yours.
Hi. I'm the sort of technical project manager at LiveCode for FM. So just oversee the general kind of development of the tool, and I've also I was one of the main people writing the sync engine. So that's why I'm talking about that today. So I think I'll just go ahead and share my screen if that's all right. So today I'm going to be talking about the sync options in LiveCode for FM and generally how to sort of tweak and test recompile. Before I do talk about that, I'm just going to briefly go into, there was a question yesterday about using the Android emulator. So I'm just going to show you how to do that, and then I'll do my first test on the emulator, and hopefully that will show you how it works. So it's a slight quirk of Android Studio here in that you have to actually open a project or start a project in order to get all these menu options. And the menu option you want for an emulator is this AVD manager, virtual device manager. So if you click that, I've already got one set up here. So yeah, if you want to create a new one, you just click create virtual device here. There's various options about what kind of device you can have. And then there are further kind of advanced options. Just make sure that you've got a API level 30. That's what we want for LiveCode for FM. So yeah, as I say, I've already created one here, and I'm just going to set that going. Takes a little while to start up, so I'll just leave that for the moment, and then hopefully it'll be there when I come to use it in a second. Moved on to a separate screen. Right, there we go. Okay, well that's the emulator starting up there. Right, so let's move on to sync options. So the default sync is automatic sync. So you can add this to your solution without actually doing any coding or anything. This is just a bunch of settings in the LiveCode for FM app. So if you click that you want sync, then you'll get this automatic sync. And it's by default, it's also two-way, so it will sync both up and down. And this automatic sync is a combination of blocking and non-blocking elements. So blocking, that brings up a spinner over the UI and prevents any interaction, whereas non-blocking happens in the background and allows the user to continue using the app. So when you have automatic sync enabled on startup, the first time the app is opened, then there'll be a blocking sync. That's just to make sure when you start off, the local app is completely in sync with the server. So that can't continue. The app can't continue if that sync fails, and you get a dialog if it does fail with a suitable error message. The second element is that it syncs on local commit. So every time there's a commit, the spinner will pop up and sync the changes that have just been committed. And also while it does that, it will pull down any changes. And then the third sort of element is polling of remote changes. So you can set a particular interval, and I think the default is every 10 seconds it will ping the server with an SQL query, and that will fetch any changed records on the server. The actual check itself is non-blocking, so the app will continue to function while it checks to see if there are any changes. That's assuming you're not checking for deletions. And then if it does detect changes, then when, for example, the current script has finished executing, it will then sync those changes down. The reason, if you're checking for deletions, then it has to basically fetch data on every single record on the server to know that things have been deleted. So that's why that will immediately block if it checks for deletions. So you can configure whether it checks for deletions at all or how often it checks for them. So yeah, we really recommend for good user experience just to to not really delete or check for deletions. The best thing to do is to, I think this is fairly standard FileMaker practice anyway, but marking records as kind of deleted with a field rather than actually deleting them is kind of best practice with this. So with automatic sync, while the connection is available, this is a slightly more kind of FM Go-like experience. It's just continually keeping the client and server data in sync. But when the connection is not available, this just allows the app to run as normal without a connection until it becomes available. And then all the changes that have built up while you've been running the app get synced. So automatic sync is useful for cases where you want the committed data to be transferred between the client and server as soon as it can be. And as I say, no scripting is actually required for that. It's just settings. So the first thing I'm going to demonstrate here is that is adding automatic sync to our solution. So the solution itself is already set up for sync in that the base table that we want to sync is set up in that it has the appropriate primary key and creation and modification timestamp fields, which are what we need for syncing. So since we're only actually changing settings within LiveCode for FM, and we haven't modified the file, iteration is a bit faster, as it doesn't have to actually export the DDRs from the solution. So we're going to add this syncing, this simple version of the syncing, and demonstrate it just now.
Is just while you're kind of pivoting, you said the first sync with the blocking happens on commit. Is that just like in the way we think of like in FileMaker, like a commit records, like at that moment?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, where is my LiveCode for FM? Here we go. Okay, so I'm just going to edit this app. Okay, so it's just it is importing now because I have actually opened the solution more recently than I compiled it. So.
Oh, is the process still going? Or are we good?
Yeah, it's still going.
Okay, then I will forward some questions to you since I've got a couple. We've got one that says, what happens if the internet connection is lost in the middle of syncing?
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. So it will fail at that point, obviously, and then it will continue trying to sync or trying to get a connection in the background until it gets one again, and then it will continue to sync. So yeah, kind of what you would hope would happen now, I think.
Okay, awesome. And then does LCFM Android client communicate to FMS through DAPI?
Yes, it does, yes.
Okay, so as a follow-up, he doesn't need the FileMaker client license for the Android client.
No, you just need the appropriate data API licenses for what you're doing.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I think that hopefully that answers your question. I think there might be one other hanging around here. Give me a second. Does the sync grab all data from each table which was listed to sync, or can you limit the sync to current data?
Yes. So the default sync is just syncing up and down for every table that you that is set up for sync. But you can control it. I'll demonstrate various ways you can control and restrict the what gets synced later on. So yeah, there are more fine-grained controls over what you sync up and down.
Okay, awesome, and thank you.
Okay, so here we come to the data options section, and we do want our solution to synchronize. So this is, you need to say yes here, whatever kind of sync you're using, and if you say yes, then it will generate another solution that you need to upload to your server next to the original one. So we'll click next here. Now this gives you some of the initial syncing options. So this 10 seconds here, this is effectively the polling interval that I was talking about before. So currently this says every 10 seconds I want to check the server solution and see if there are any changes. Then you can configure how often it should check for deleted records. So it's something quite high here. So it doesn't check for deleted records very often. You can set it to quite high. I mean, but we aren't deleting record, or we're not sort of checking for deletions here, so that's fine. And then how many times should your solution retry connecting to the server if the connection fails? So that's just I guess if the connection is, or the signal is slightly weak, then you might want to only make it retry sort of a few times before giving up, and then trying again later. Okay, so we're just syncing the files table. Sync setup fine. Now I had already generated the gateway solution, so that's why it's skipped past that. I'm going to open the gateway solution now. So when you do this for the first time, you'll get LiveCode for FM will open up this. It does it all automatically. It will add table occurrences for every table that you want to actually sync here, and it will add these fields, and you just need to go into the account security here and add a full access account, the same as the one in your original solution. Managed to mistype there. So that, and then upload that next to your original solution that you've got hosted. So that's, I guess, yeah, that's what this is saying. Make sure your data API is switched on, enter your FileMaker server address. So we've done all that already. So we click next. Okay, and then if we get the Android deployment profile that I've already created, and let's click test on my Android device. And there's only one device connected, which is the emulator. So we'll just wait for that to appear, hopefully.
So that gateway file that actually gets hosted next to your original one, that's only regenerate. Does it get regenerated like when you make changes, or only sometimes?
Yeah, so where LiveCode for FM builds a sort of summary of the data model, you have like the collection of fields and tables, and so if that changes, then it will recreate the gateway file, and you have to re-upload it. But if none of that changes and you're just making changes to the layouts, for example, then it won't regenerate.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay. I actually misspoke there. Even though there was only one device connected, it still asked me to make it.
Real quick, another question since we're taking a breather. I just wanted to make sure that the sync doesn't force people to download old data. So does the sync force people to download archived data, which is several weeks old?
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. So this version of the sync will do the automatic sync. If you don't do any additional configuration, then all the records will be synced up and down. But I'll talk later about how you can restrict the data that is synced. Essentially, you define a constraint, which is like a where clause in an SQL query, and that defines the records that get synced. So, for example, you could have, if you had a field denoting that a record was archived, you could have your constraint such that only unarchived records get synced. Your constraint can also just be timestamp based. So yeah, there's various ways to slice that.
So I do have a quick question, so I'm going to briefly swap back to asking another question that I got from Twitch. Is there a limit to the maximum size of an FMP app that can be used on LiveCode FM? File size and components, i.e. layout, scripts, fields, etc. A phone app will have limited components, but the desktop version is much bigger.
Yeah, so this is partly the same sort of thing as adding constraints. So the more data you have on your mobile app, the less well it will function. But the kind of use cases that LiveCode for FM is best for are when you have, I guess, per user data, which is a limited subset of the actual data, the data contained in the whole app, and only that the data relevant to the particular user is stored on the device. So yeah, I'm going to show how to do that using sync constraints. In terms of layouts and things, we haven't seen a solution big enough. I don't think that where the amount of layouts and things like that are too large for a mobile app. So it's really the data and pretty much mainly the container data that can cause problems if there's too much of it. But yeah, there are various ways around to sort of minimize the amount of data on the actual device. Okay, so hopefully this is going to launch on the emulator in a second. There we go. And that's the initial blocking sync there, where it's syncing all of the data. So it's going to pull down everything from the server.
Does that time vary by? Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, depending on how much there is up there, this could take a while. So this is kind of one of the reasons you want to do kind of restrictions so that these syncs don't take too long.
Is there any, I know you picked a certain emulator. Do you always do the same one, or is there any recommendation on that beyond like, the specific settings you said it needs to have? But
to be honest, I quite often need to delete my emulators to save space.
Okay.
And every time I do it, I kind of pick a random one, I think. But that's just for me as a developer, it means I'm getting more test coverage. Whereas
Sure.
you might want to pick something a bit more reliable that you use every time.
Choose from the buffet.
That's just syncs down the records that existed on the server. You can go to the list there and create a new record. Let's just call it test. Very unimaginative description, and then we'll just commit that, and you see there that record gets pushed up to the server. And you can see that record has appeared there. So that's the automatic sync. Basically, so when you commit there, it will block and sync, and also it will be checking every 10 seconds. In fact, I could let's make a quick change to this. And then if we wait for the next poll interval, there we go, it's synced back down to the device. So that's your automatic sync.
I don't know if this would apply now or later, but is there a, like if two people try to hit the same record at the same time, is there any place where you choose who kind of wins, or is it by the timestamp strictly?
Yes, it's done by modification timestamp, yeah.
Okay.
So there's the possibility in the future that we can add more sophisticated strategies, or come up with some kind of dialogue. But at the moment, it's just timestamp wins, or latest timestamp wins.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so manual sync, by contrast, is controlled by script steps. So these are script steps that are made available through the plugin, which is automatically installed by LiveCode for FM. So when you open LiveCode for FM, it will install the plugin, so that these script steps are available when you next open FileMaker. And the main one we want is just called sync. It has a check for deletions parameter and a timeout parameter. So this script step causes an immediate blocking sync to occur. There's also request sync, which will cause the sync to occur at the next idle point, i.e. when the current scripts have finished executing, if there's any data to sync. But if there isn't, then it won't do anything. So manual sync is particularly useful if the records are kind of owned by a client and aren't going to be modified on the server. The app just functions normally without connecting to the server, accumulates content, and then you can push it all in one go, choosing when to do it. For example, when a remote worker returns to the office and they know that they've got reliable internet connection and they want to just push up all of the records they've generated that day. And with the sync script step, you can use get last error and get last external error detail to check whether it succeeded, and if not, why it didn't succeed. So we're going to iterate on the solution or add manual sync. So we're going to turn off the automatic sync and add the sync script step to the upload button. So this time, since we're modifying the solution, it will have to re-export it, but again, it shouldn't have to recreate the interface solution because we're not changing the data model. I'm gonna, instead of actually demoing that right now, I'm gonna talk about push-only sync as well, just to save time. I'll show you that straight away. So the plan for this app is for the files table to be push only. We are planning to add the ability to set table modes to LiveCode for FM, like push only and pull only. But for now, you have to use sync constraints to do that. So a sync constraint, as I said before, it's a condition that is formatted like an SQL where clause. This is applied when checking the server, and only records that satisfy the constraint are pulled down. So for push only that we want for this app, we just want nothing to satisfy the constraint. And there's a little sort of shortcut in the LiveCode for FM engine, where if you use 1 equals 0, then it's slightly more efficient under the hood than any other condition that's trivially false. So we're going to use that. In general, sync constraints can be set using the set table sync constraint script step. So if you have a sync constraint applied, that governs all forms of syncing in LiveCode for FM, either automatic or manual. If sync is checking for deletions, then local records that don't satisfy the constraint have the changes pushed and then are deleted from the device. So that's another kind of, if you want that kind of model where records are created and then pushed up and deleted, then that's how you can achieve that. So for our app, we want the app to start off with no data again. We just want to push local records to the server and retain them on the device. So we'll add a set table sync constraint. In the table, we want to constrain as files, and the constraint we want is 1 equals 0. And then we're going to sync without checking for deletions. So let's go back to FileMaker. Here's our app. I've actually already scripted this function, so I'm just going to show you it. So the upload button here, it commits, and then it sets the sync constraint. You only actually have to do this once. We could have done this on a first window open trigger or something like that. But it's not very expensive to just keep running it each time, so we've added it to the script. And then sync without checking for deletions. And then we're just checking the last error. It's going to tell us the upload succeeded, or if it failed, what happened.
So just reemphasize that set the constraint one isn't like doesn't change until you change it in a script.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
It remains active, yeah, until you change it again. So
You don't have
yeah.
to restate it in each script you do or something.
No.
Got it.
Okay. So let's go back to the solution options here. Right, and it's going to re-export the app. I didn't actually make any changes there, but if you open a FileMaker solution, its timestamp gets its modification timestamp of the file gets updated. So LiveCode for FM will re-export it. Chances are, if you opened it and did something to the local copy, then you might want to rebuild anyway. Okay, we still want to synchronize, and we still don't want any data included. Continue. Yeah, this is all the same. So that time it skipped the interface solution again because there were no changes to the data. And what we want to do is go into this advanced settings dialog here. So all of the settings that you can change elsewhere in LiveCode for FM, you can change in this dialog. And in the sync settings, we want automatic sync to be disabled at startup. Now, there's actually a script step as well to control turning off and on automatic sync, just in case you need parts of your app to be automatic and parts of it to be manual. So here we go. Go to test and deploy again then, and test on your Android device.
Can you use that script step if you've unchecked it, or if you're trying to use a script step, it has to be checked?
You can use it if you've unchecked it, yeah. The only, you need to have selected yes to sync on the original data options screen.
Yeah.
But other than that, yes, you can use the script steps.
Guess we could take this time to promote the rest of what we're going to be doing. So today we're actually doing this sync conversation here with the compiling. Then tomorrow for Friday, we're actually going to be looking at the Google Play Store, basically just discussing sign up for all that, and we'll be actually pushing this up to the store tomorrow. So don't want to miss that one.
Okay, so this is our new version of the app with manual sync. As you can see, it's got no data and it didn't sync down any of the data from the server. And we just want to create a new, let's call this one manual sync. Why am I using that? Another test. And this time we can commit and nothing happens until we click the upload button. And upload succeeded. So as you can see, it's also, if you only need to push, it's a lot quicker to add manual syncing that only pushes. And then we'll go to our list and see that record has appeared. Okay. So advanced sync options. So you can use these sync constraints to do user account data restriction in client apps. So you just need to add constraints for every table that will be synced, ensuring that only records relevant to the current user are synced. So I'll go back to FileMaker here. I've created a sort of sample app. Okay, so this is just to demonstrate how that would work. Here you've got a very basic login screen and a login button. And this is the script of the login button. So what it does here is it packs up the username and password in a list, passes that as a variable to a server script, which is called login server, and that script is going to do your user validation. So it could be as simple as just doing relogin or something like that. And the script is going to return a user ID, which is meant to be the primary key of that user, which is replicated through all of the related records that are relevant to that user. So I'll just quickly go back to the database here, explain what I mean there. So this app has got a users table. Each user has a primary key, and then all the data for all users is in the user data table, but it has a foreign key, which is equal to the primary key of that user. So how we would restrict the records on the client here is that user ID is the foreign key associated with that user, and we just set a sync constraint on the user data table, and the constraint is that the FK user field is equal to that user ID. There's some slightly odd escaping going on here because the constraint has to be formatted correctly as a SQL where clause. So we've got quotes around the field name and single quotes around the user ID string there. And then we'll sync, checking for deletions this time because we want to remove any local records that don't belong to the user that's logging in, and then go to a layout user data which displays the data for that user. So that's kind of a really basic example of how you can use the sync constraints to do per user sync and account login.
So we had someone before that just asked, does PSOS work with an Android app? And I think you just showed that.
Oh, right. Yes, indeed. It does. Yes. Yeah, you just, as long as the solution is hosted and you have the server address in your app configuration, then yeah, it works fine. Okay, so another thing we've been talking about is about the amount of data on your device, and one way to control how much data there is on your device is to use deferred containers. So this is a mechanism that allows you to only download container data when it's needed. When there's a container on a layout which where the data hasn't yet been downloaded, it displays a spinner while downloading in the background, so you can continue to interact with the app. If container data is needed for calculations, then the UI has to block while it downloads. So in particular, if you have it in, if you refer to containers in hide conditions and things, then it needs to resolve that container before it can calculate the hide condition. The cache limit is configurable using script steps, so you can limit depending on a user choice or some sort of contextual information, or you could just have a fixed limit. So right, let's save that. So here I've got a slightly modified version of the collector app. I've removed all of the containers from this layout, and I've removed some of the stuff that used hide conditions on the data layout. And I'm just going to show you. So the way you mark a container as deferred is just to add @deferred in the comment field. So we're going to make sure all of these containers are deferred. Let's go back to LiveCode for FM. So I've got this as a second project here. So we do want to synchronize. We don't want the existing data included. That's fine, yes. So this is actually using the same hosted solution and gateway as the original version of the app. We don't actually need to change those because the actual data model is still exactly the same. So,
yeah, it wasn't like adding a table, it's just scripts.
Yeah, indeed. And the deferred comment in the container fields. So here we're going to have automatic sync enabled again at startup, just to show. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you actually. So what I did here was in this modified version of the app, I actually added to the startup script to set the cache limit to 0. This basically just means the only container data that would be stored on the device at any given time is what's needed to display the current layout. Okay, so let's test that.
If you do a sync that kind of takes a while, whether it's a lot of container data or maybe just a lot of records that, I don't know, you lose connection because you're doing inspections out in the field somewhere, so they're kind of queuing up, waiting. What would the user see? Is it kind of that little like arrow screen, or is it just kind of pause, or is there some dialogue if there's like a bunch that's coming through?
Yeah, it's just the spinner. I suppose yeah, it might be good if we could figure out a way of adding some sort of progress. So yeah, I suppose it could compute how much data there was left to push up. but yeah, currently it's just a spinner.
Okay.
So yeah, you'd have to sort of expect to wait as long as the amount of data you had pushed.
At least you see something happening, so it doesn't just look like it glitched and froze or something.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Okay, so this one we've got, we had automatic sync on, so it's downloaded the all the records that were on the server, and we'll just go into one of these. And there you go. That container there was deferred, and it shows the spinner until the image itself is downloaded, and then we can go out and back into something else. Same thing will happen. And then I think this one's got an audio file. So, and actually, if you quickly click away. Okay, that it didn't work. It was too small an audio file there. But if you click away before the deferred container is resolved, then it will stop resolving. And yeah, I guess that's just to demonstrate that you've still got full user control over the app while it's resolving those containers.
Yeah, that's really useful.
Okay, I think that's pretty much all I was going to talk about today. Are there any further questions that I didn't get time to address?
I don't think so. I think, Miles, are you good?
Yeah, let me check. Also, YouTube. No, there were a couple, but you answered them by just them just waiting. So yeah.
Okay, then I think we're probably good. Thank you so much for coming and talking about this. Your expertise is fantastic. We greatly appreciate it. This is probably the portion that most FileMaker people have the most questions about and want to see done. So thank you very much again.
Great, thank you very much.
All right, have a good one. Bye.
Yes, bye.
Just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected. The quarterback, great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.